over here.
Hey, Smokey and Rich Millie.
I went to hang out with friends instead of
Black and white and far away.
I don't know what kind of dog doing black and white.
Double space.
Oh, you want an invite?
Squad. We're supposed to bring our ticket because I brought that.
He said you can. He said you should, so put it on there.
I don't know where I put it.
Hey, I can give you mine.
I'll use it.
We were just like, you know what?
You got ticket or no?
I built it. I can see
Wait, Mr. Corbin.
Okay, do I have all of these?
I forgot. I don't know where I put my ticket. You don't need it.
Yeah, but I still need a hard copy for the I'll accept it.
Smoking racist.
Y'all get quiet, please. Listen up. Okay. Y'all listen. Okay. First thing. These will go in after everything else. Okay, so you'll have to take your exam and let me get that put in. Because if I add an extra point and then add more grades, that extra point may not equal a full extra point later on. Everyone got that?
Yes.
Okay, so I will get it in. So basically, you know, I should get these in as I put in your final and performance exam scores. So when you see those in, you may or may not see a category that shows where I put this in. Okay, but I don't want to get over Christmas break 90 emails asking if the extra point is in. Everyone got that? So if you can see your final, then this is it. Everyone got that?
Yes.
Okay.
So close.
Yeah, let's see, that should be it. There's a little bit of makeup work. I think most people with that hasn't been entered are, please be quiet, even though this doesn't pertain to most people. But most people should sort of know what's going on with that if it does pertain to you with some makeup work that is not in quite yet. Your last quizzes, I still do need to enter, so that'll be sort of the last thing that goes in. Okay. Yeah, and then like I said, that will be the very, very last thing after exams when y'all take those. Oh, also, doesn't really pertain to y'all today, but just as sort of a reminder, normally with the new curriculum, I was, y'all, please listen while I'm talking. Some of this is very important and will be next semester. Yeah, normally the Columbian Exchange, that's sort of like the first big project of second semester. And so I go over like some other things because, you know, most of the other stuff in the past first semester had been, you know, smaller things like the flow chart and stuff like that. Like I generally give enough assignments that'll sort of equal the same as a big project. But because they've completely changed stuff, we got the Columbian Exchange sooner. So I just wasn't quite thinking about going over some of the things to do with projects. So like one, and again, I'm just remembering this because my honors had some stuff that was due on Friday. and I got them graded, and I just have some like, one, if you had a binder for your Columbian Exchange, I brought that back. The other thing is with projects, and this is the main thing I forgot to mention, that if you want it back, you need to like attach a note or let me know very soon, okay? Because generally what I do is I'll save a few of the good examples to use in future years to kind of show what is a good example, but then the rest I recycle, because I've learned in the past and getting all of these things like to my car, into my house, back into my car, back to here into my classroom is a huge pain in the butt. And when I do that, and literally only 2 people take them home and I'm left with just like stuff scattered around my room after after like 2 years of doing that, I just started recycling projects, okay? So sorry if you really wanted yours back. I know a couple people asked and I'm like, oops, I forgot about that. But yeah, let me know, like basically when you turn it in, put a save this for me and I'll be sure to get that back. But for the people that really don't care, I just assume sort of recycle them at home and save that trip. Next thing, and this isn't just for projects, but general things, but like today I had a couple here and some people who were turning in one of their honors projects late, they were just coming and just setting them up here. Okay, that's not good because there's no guarantee, I mean, because again, these are already all graded. One stack is actually AP stuff and they're trying to turn in their honors, because yeah, they're a little embarrassed probably because it's late. But if you're turning in something late, you need to put it in my hands. Unless it is handed to me in my hands, there is no guarantee that it will make it into my grade book, especially if it's just laid down over here. Okay, and I've noticed that a couple of times where I've come in like the day after something's due and there's just something on this table. Okay, one, what I do that, because I'm not always here in the afternoons, but academic team is practicing in here frequently, and so my door's open, and so people can come in and I see stuff laid there. Now, there's 2 problems with that. One, you probably notice when, you turn stuff in, I immediately clip it together and put it to the side. Okay, that's so that I know that all of these were turned in on time. I don't unclip them until I start grading them. So if you just try to sort of sneak it in and pull when it was right there, I mean, I still immediately write late on them. That's if I actually notice them. Okay, if it happens to get knocked off the table and it's just on the floor right there, what do you think is going to happen when the janitor comes in to vacuum? It gets thrown away. Okay, so if you ever have late work, you need to make sure it physically gets into my hand. Okay, and this is for your good, because I don't want you to turn something in and it then get lost. But unless you've handed it to me, it's not my responsibility to keep up with it. Does that make sense? I can't have control over if something gets lost if you just happen to come lay it in the room. The other thing, especially this year, is first period, I'm not in this room. Coach Jones is in this room with a geography class. So that means there's a whole bunch of freshmen and another teacher who are all in here, and if you just happen to leave it in here in the afternoon when I'm not in the room, there's lots of things that could happen to it before I actually even make it into this room and could possibly find it. So just please make sure that anything that's ever late, put it into my hands. Whether it's late and it's gonna have like some points taken off, or you were just absent and you're giving it to me late, but it's for full credit. Make sure it gets into my hand. Got that? Okay, because again, I'm wondering, because there were a few, grades, I don't think it was any AP, but there were a couple where I was like, no, I turned that in, and now I'm wondering, oh, did you come in later and just set it down over here? Because if you turned it in and I clipped it all together, there should be no reason for it disappearing. But just sort of keep that in mind. Okay. Okay, so you need to take a roll.
Can I get that back over?
That's it right there. So give it back. If I just had to get it, you saw
I gotta see it all.
you told me to read it there and give it back. Scott had his hands on it?
No, it's my basement. And I had to switch it out with the Android tractor. I'll do that.
Everybody in the world knows yours. You see this?
Just wait.
You see this? You see it? Get off of me. Just go ignore it.
Okay, so Okay, I thought what we could do today and tomorrow is just do a review game. Okay, so should have these set up again tomorrow for us to do this. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll have people sort of cycle through. So after a few questions, we'll switch out who's up here. What we've been doing so far today is just doing girls versus guys. Okay.
It's all guys in the front line.
All right, so we'll keep up with that. Is there anyone who would like to keep score?
Yeah. I like it.
Okay, Zane, you good? All right, and so what we need also, and so what that means is, well, there's only 5 places to buzz in, but so when we switch out, right now we're gonna have 3 guys, 2 girls. When we switch out, it needs to be 3 girls, 2 guys. All right, got that? All right, so need 2 girls up here at the empty desks.
Hey, can I get out? Where are you going? All right, place
Wait, Mr. Corporal, how many points per question?
I'm not playing with Valerie. Please switch. Please.
Yo!
Hey, the longer this takes, the fewer things that you're gonna hear.
Is this good just to teach our guys?
Okay, y'all get quiet, please. Okay, so when you buzz in, if you're the first to buzz in, you will have a blinking light in front of you, like that. So, if you're not sure, just look down. Also, be careful. Make sure that you're the person buzzed in, because sometimes you might think you have it, but someone else was quicker than you. So don't blurt out the answer, because unless your buzzer's lit up, you don't get credit for the answer. Got that? And you don't want to give it to someone else. Okay. Okay. Who converted the Franks to Christianity? Nope. So you can only buzz in once. Once you get it wrong, you can't try again.
Should I just answer it? Constantinople?
No, that's a
Yes, an A in this class.
That's the first letter right.
Oh! Constantine.
No. It was the Franks were a Germanic tribe.
You say Constantine.
And the leader who converted them to Christianity was Clovis. Remember how I showed you how that's the name that we get Louis from? Okay, remember when we were going over the early Middle Ages and I showed you how Clovis is the name we got Louis from? Yeah, remember that?
I still don't understand. That didn't really get any quick enough.
He said a few questions.
What is a tax that non-Muslims must pay?
Jizya.
Yep, very good.
Yeah.
You say, where's the tax minister?
Which Tang Dynasty monarch helped the spread of Buddhism? Yeah, so this is pre-Mongol spread of Buddhism in China. Tang Dynasty. Very good.
Is he not?
Empress Wu.
Oh, what's the name of Mulan? What?
Hey. That's how you say it.
Bro, you're Asian, you don't know.
Which Russian prince forced his people to become baptized?
Prince Vladimir.
Very good.
Dude, kick her out.
Wait, it's Kaiser growing, bro.
Oh, my bad.
It's a fat tube.
I'm pressing E.
She's carrying you.
Someone kick her out.
She can't go again, though.
Who's considered the founder of Judaism?
Abraham?
Abraham.
Y'all are worthless. I know, but they're worthless.
Oh, bro, I'm just saying.
Who's the founder of Taoism?
That's tough. You got it, Valerie?
She about to say it. She got it.
Okay.
Is it Lao Tzu?
Yeah, very good.
I'm good with this. You are worthless. I have all the points. 2 points. I got you. Alright, yeah, you got me.
Also, just to let y'all know, what I'm doing is I'm not reading you, I'm looking at the test, but I'm not reading you questions directly from it, but I'm taking information you need to know to answer the question from. Does that make sense? Or I might be doing something like, rather than who spread, like for example, now this is just sort of for an example of, because it's an easy one for me to think, but like instead of say, like if I'm asking, you know, who helped you spread Buddhism during the Tang Dynasty, instead it might be so-and-so helped to spread which religion. Does that make sense? So it's either a piece of information from the question that you should probably know if you're going to understand what the question's asking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or I might be sort of inverting the questions or something like that. But it's all related to stuff on the test. Makes sense? Or I might throw in something where it's like a piece of information about, like especially with religions, where I might be like, oh, here's just sort of a basic fact about this religion, even if it's not from a specific question. But it's all going to be related somehow or another.
Let's go.
You're carrying the guys right now.
After the first 4 caliphs, what was the name of the caliphate? Umayyad, very good.
She answered too quick. Alright, but listen to the question. You're in process.
You're allowed to do it before the question.
Bro, I just want to point that out.
But I did all the points. It's not my fault.
I'm not
I'll be honest, bro. How many have y'all know? How many of you know?
3 of them.
Exactly, and she probably cut them all.
But no, you got the
What term literally translates as House of Islam?
Darul Islam.
Darul Islam.
You're like, you got your points.
What not Japanese, what Chinese term means respect of elders?
You sell out. Well, you know it?
Can we like tap in?
Nobody? All right, it's filial piety.
I think this sounds like a Japanese one.
It's exactly this name.
Okay, Confucius stated that society was based on 5 what? No helping from the back.
Relationship. Why would you say that?
Which relationships?
So
No. Like there's a name, a term. Like the 5 blank relationships. Don't list them, but
fundamental.
no, 5 basic relationships.
Yo, we're not out of this. Once Valerie's done, she can't play games. And then Rich is gonna play?
Yeah, we're doing good.
We're like the front. I start. You need to step your game up. Get one.
What language and culture resulted from a mix of Bantu and Arab? Swahili.
I was gonna press it like I'm working.
Are you doing yoga?
Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot. There we go. Yeah, I know.
Shut up. When are we gonna switch out?
Yeah, switch it out.
Let's go.
Yeah, Rich.
Only 2 points.
Wait, the same people can't play again, right? The same people. So Valerie.
Not for a while, yeah.
You cannot let Valerie play again. You will lose.
If you want, just no, 3 girls. I can't.
Just jump over here.
How's your day, Mr. Corporal?
Not too bad for a Monday.
Yeah.
Me either. I'm like literally.
My job is to make sure Rich is coming.
All right. Escaping what is the goal of Hinduism?
Reincarnation.
Yes. Or the cycle of rebirth.
Yo, let's go. Rich, get your points. Get as many as you can. Get your points. Oh, it's 2 points.
Who's the Muslim equivalent of Marco Polo?
Even between time.
Very good.
I need to slap your finger on top. Good.
Your number is kind of crooked.
Okay, you know what?
Yeah, let me do it, bro.
No, you're good. Oh my gosh.
It's okay. No, I don't care.
There you go.
Where did the Black Death originate?
China.
China.
Let's go. What's your points in?
I've known it. I just haven't confessed it. The only one I've
There's always someone faster.
I got it. I should not play against you. You're so annoying.
What is the name of the period of stability created by the Mongols?
Bro, I know. Oh. Where?
I feel like I know.
Everywhere.
You won.
The Pax Mongolica.
You know what to say.
I sold.
I don't take claim for that one. I'll take claim for this one.
Which Khanate had the greatest effect on Russia?
The gold horde.
Very good.
Let's go. Get your points. We got this. Wow. Boy version of
Oh my god.
It's like.
Why does it matter so much?
Because you get out of Jesus Christ.
What navigational instrument helps a sailor to determine their latitude?
Astrolabe.
Astrolabe.
Martin Whisper.
I took a picture with it. Zoom, bro.
Maybe two teams and me.
What three things did the Bantu migration spread?
Agriculture,
Okay.
language,
Language?
lifestyle.
No.
No, that falls under agriculture.
Agriculture, language, and culture.
No. Agriculture, language, and ironworking.
At least you didn't give them the point.
All y'all, except a couple. That's the only one I did.
I don't know the name.
Amen.
What form of Christianity did the Byzantine Empire practice?
Eastern Orthodox.
Very good.
Oh, that's so
Eastern Orthodox.
Eastern Orthodox.
I'm just gonna listen to this thing back.
He said Byzantine.
What is the first Chinese dynasty?
Like in total, like the first ever, the first one we learned.
The first real one, not the legendary one.
Oh, Sway.
Nope. Shang. Sway is after the Han.
Wait, Mr. Corporal.
Like non.
No, the legendary one is the Xia. The Shang, though, is the first actual historical dynasty we can back up with archaeology, not just with Chinese records. Like, they say there was a Xia dynasty, but there's no archaeological evidence of it. There was a culture there, but nothing that we can say is politically organized enough to be an actual dynasty. So the Shang is the first actual, which is why the song begins with Shang.
I knew that, bro.
Yeah. Joe. G-H-O-U. Gong Jokshin, Han Sui, Kong Song, Yuan Ming Qing, Republic, Mao Zedong. Okay, what was the Indian term for what we commonly call caste?
Mr. Corporal, you have to reset it.
Oh, thank you.
Varma?
Say?
No.
No, once you say something, you don't get to guess again. But what did you say?
I said Varma. I think it's
Well, you're close, but no. Actually, you're one. It's Varna.
Varna.
Yeah, you mixed up an M and an N.
We still get it?
Yay.
Mr. Cole, what's Jati?
It's a subdivision of caste.
Oh,
Yeah, so there were the four main Varna in what we call the Vedic religion, basically pre-Hindu. Y'all might want to hear this. The Vedic religions are basically the religions of the Aryans once they come into the Indian subcontinent, but there's still some slight differences from what we recognize as Hinduism. And so in the Vedic religions and early Hinduism, there were four main Varna, based on the sort of four main social classes in Indo-European societies. Those then over time got subdivided into hundreds of different jatis, which rather than just being, like the Vaishya were the merchants, now it was, well, are you a rice merchant? Are you a gold merchant? What type, so you get even more subdivided. So that's what a jati is just a subdivision of caste. What Chinese concept legitimized the change in dynasties?
The mandate of heaven?
Yep.
I think too much before I press.
What was the first Mesoamerican civilization?
The Olmec.
Olmec, very good. What was the staple crop of Mesoamerica?
Maize.
Yep.
Oh shoot.
Maize. Or maize.
Big dog.
That was my question. I quit. My thing is.
Yeah, sure, switch.
We're doing the mess y'all got.
Got a guess?
There's 3 boys need to be up here. That's how he goes. 6. Actually, you're just going to
I'm going to say 6.
You know
That's crazy.
Felix, you got it.
I really don't know.
No, only like which section?
Alright.
In that section, it doesn't make you smart. It doesn't make you smart. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're going for, bro. But it doesn't make you smart.
This is a pretty smart.
Yeah, because I know it. Quick thinking, bang, just you. In my grading class.
Until the spread of Islam, what was the primary religion of Persia?
Zoroastrianism.
Very good.
I already know that.
While during the Middle Ages, while Europe was politically fragmented, what held it together socially?
The church?
Which one?
Which part of Europe?
There's only one part that's in the Middle Ages.
Roman Catholic.
Yep, Roman Catholic Church. Because Eastern Europe, when Western Europe is in the Middle Ages, Eastern Europe is either the Byzantine Empire in the south until 1452 or 1542. I mean, literally when the Middle Ages are over in Europe and Europe's said to be in the Renaissance. Or Eastern Europe to the north is under the Mongol control until the rise of Russia. Okay, so when we say the Middle Ages, by definition, it means only Western Europe. So that's part of what y'all need to remember when you hear that term, is it only applies to Western Europe. Okay, thank you. Who's the equivalent of the Pope in Eastern Europe? The Patriarch, very good.
Patriarch? Yeah.
I was gonna answer.
Which types of societies tend to be more patriarchal, pastoralists or agriculturalists?
It's 50-50.
Nope. I know y'all don't get to answer because it's 50-50.
Dang it.
No, remember, agriculture, with agriculture, we get patriarchy. Okay, so with with the agricultural revolution and gathering and hunting societies, we tend to see very egalitarian societies. It's with the development of agriculture, which also includes domestication of animals as well, that we get the development of patriarchy. So farming societies tend to be the most patriarchal. Pastoral societies, though, tend to be a little less. There's still some patriarchy compared to gatherer-hunters, but they tend to be much less patriarchal than sedentary farming societies. This is part of why we see a decrease in patriarchy in China during the Yuan dynasty, because the Mongols in general were less patriarchal, and that filtered down a little bit. But that's also part of why we see sort of a doubling down on patriarchy after the Mongols are pushed out of China. So, you know, with the Ming, that's why we see patriarchy increase so much, is it's a reaction, because they're associating basically women's rights with foreign rule. And so when they also want to get rid of foreign rule, they want to get rid of any vestiges of it, which was women having greater equality. Now, not near anything to what we would consider equality, it's just less patriarchal, okay? But if you want to sort of do a scale, it's hunter-gatherers, are the most egalitarian. Then pastoralists have a little bit of patriarchy in their societies, but farming societies tend to be the most patriarchal. Oh, what practice was an example of an extreme form of patriarchy in China?
Foot binding.
Yes, very good.
Let's go. I'm calling my
I don't think I answered that at all.
What church did Justinian build?
Hagia Sophia?
Yeah, the Hagia Sophia.
I wasn't sure.
Yo, be quiet, bro. Why you sitting there, bro?
I think slowly, bro.
I'm spelling them wrong.
Dude, everyone knew the answer, bro. The ones you knew answer were easy. No one even asked you, bro. No one even asked you, bro. Everyone knew
We're on the same team.
Okay, from about 4000 to 1000 BCE, who spread their languages and the use of horses across Eurasia? Thank you. Indo-Europeans.
Dobby just vibing.
Yeah. Hey, Richard. Trying to review, bro.
That's so dumb.
What caliphate replaced the Umayyad Caliphate?
Boston?
Yep, the Abbasid.
Oh, it's a massive.
Okay, of the following crops, let me finish all of them, which is not American? That is, was not in the Americas before the Columbian Exchange. So, sugar, coffee, tobacco.
Coffee.
Okay, actually, you should have said it the other way, so that is one. Okay, which is the only American one? Oh,
Tobacco.
what period?
That boy Oscar.
I literally just said it.
History said it.
There's, it's
Well, my light is on.
You gotta reset.
Tobacco.
Yeah, tobacco is the American one.
Let's go.
I just told
Sorry,
you.
Stop playing for the guys.
I said it wrong.
Okay, we start this again.
Or sugar, I
That
think.
still counts.
Wait, so does that count as a point for?
Yeah, because I mean he had 2 chances to get it.
Like Africa?
Okay.
It was made in the Philippines or something. Oh yeah,
It's one for us. No, because he
Wait,
looks at it. It's the first game.
That's
Because that guy came in.
Guys are getting hit.
What's the name of the peninsula that Spain and Portugal are on? Iberian.
It's all about speed.
What's the name of the peninsula that modern day Turkey is on?
Arabian Peninsula.
Nope. Nope.
Wait, it's
Anatolian. Saudi Arabia is on the Arabian Peninsula. That's why it's called Saudi Arabia. Is it's Arabia ruled by the House of Saud?
Okay.
Falcons are like a sea.
Yeah, the royal family is the House of Saud. That's why it's Saudi Arabia.
Thanks.
Nah, legit, y'all. Stay over the busy. Sweat round. Let's sweat.
I know this is time, guys.
What was the first group of Europeans to reach the Indian Ocean?
The Portuguese.
Portuguese. Very good.
Let's go.
I heard Zalvin was like, who was that? Like, I can't believe eating Robin Williams.
Who are the Hindu officials that collected taxes for the Mughals?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Who are the Hindu officials who collected taxes for the Mughals?
The Javis?
No.
It's just my name.
The Zamindars.
Oh, Brad.
I want to know how close they are.
They tripping, bro.
Which gunpowder empire practiced Shia Islam? The south of it.
I know, bro. Yo, get out of here, bro.
Hey, what are you tripping, bro?
Something just got
Yo, chill, bro. I'm trying to
Yes.
Yes. Speed and reflex.
What is the name for a peasant who is tied to the land? A serf.
Yes,
Get Zabi out of here.
You tripping, bro. I was literally pressing it,
I'm
bro.
not talking about you until you
That's hold on. Get on the bench. That's what
Yeah, yeah.
That was the Smurfs. The Smurfs. Surf. He said I'm vibing. Just vibing.
I've got one though. Respect. I got one.
I'll just get out of here.
What city controlled most of the trans-Saharan trade?
Oh, Gao.
No.
Mali?
Nope, that's an empire, not a city.
Timbuktu.
Timbuktu.
They just kept listing them. Yeah, eventually.
Y'all are just shady, bro.
Yeah, we have the numbers.
It's obvious. Most of it like $400 billion, bro.
So I mean, no matter what.
Shut up, bro. Why, bro? You leave, bro.
Every question.
Bro, why are you up here doing? I really will. It's the
You
coach.
might want to reset it.
Gabriel, he's the coach. Josh,
Not that deep, guys.
calm down, bro. Let's get to the next question. Yoshi. Stop.
Come on, guys, for the life of winning.
In the medieval period, what event led to increased trade in Europe?
The Crusades.
Crusades. Which pope called for the first crusade? Nope.
Urban 2.
Urban the second.
Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to do that.
No.
You're capping, bro. Let me get I'm gonna let
You just have a few more
I
minutes.
need to redeem myself. I'm gonna let y'all be tripping. I know that.
What's wrong with you? I got like 5 dollars.
Honestly, I don't care if I get it wrong. I'm gonna just say it.
8 minutes. Talk for 8 more minutes.
The Grand Canal was built during which dynasty? Yep.
Dang it.
Yep.
She presses so fast. I know you have that trigger for yourself.
Let's make that line better.
Guys, this is how we're gonna win.
I'll be pressing before you even ask her question. For real though. I don't know. Get out of here, coach.
What was the Reconquista?
Oh shit. It was the Crusades for Spanish to gain back their territory
From
from Dar al-Islam.
What?
Can I get it? Islamic? The Muslims.
I'm clicking it right.
Okay, it was the Spanish.
Let's get it done. Let's get it done.
What were the Muslims in Spain called?
He's actually. I'm gonna go right here after all these.
Moors.
What does it sound like at all? Has an end to it.
How would he's just old. I don't know how else to do with
What are you trying to tell me?
I don't know how else to do it to
Let's go, champ. Let's go, champ. Let's go, champ. Let's go, champ.
What was the Catholic response to the Reformation called? Or well, that's what Catholics call it. Everyone else calls it something else.
What do you ask? What was the other name?
Everyone other than Catholics calls it one thing. The Catholics call it the Catholic Reformation. But Protestants don't call it that because they weren't really reforming anything. All the Catholic Reformation was basically the Catholic Church saying we were right all along.
keep pushing that button.
Yeah, you can have the point.
Keep it going,
It's the Counter-Reformation.
Oh.
Because they're countering the Reformation, they're not actually reforming anything themselves. So the Catholic Church refers to it as the Catholic Reformation, but they don't really reform anything, so everyone else calls it the Counter-Reformation.
I didn't do
What monastic order was founded in response to the Reformation?
You have to reset.
No.
She just guessed that.
What monastic order was founded in response to the Reformation?
Okay, yellow. Was it the like 96 thesis thing?
No, that's what.
95.
It's 95, and that's what Martin Luther wrote. That started the process of Reformation.
Council of Trent or Society of Jesus?
Well, the Council of Trent was a council.
Oh, God.
So it's not a monastic order. It's the Jesuits or the Society of Jesus.
Yeah.
You don't get a point. You don't get to give multiple answers. One is right.
Is it Hail Mary though?
It was a Hail Mary. Well, it's not the 95 thesis. Yeah.
I said Society of Jesus.
He's got one. He's got one.
Yeah, one more though.
Yeah, give one more. Give one more name.
Okay. What Incan tax system was converted to a forced labor system by the Spanish?
Mita?
Mita.
Oh, yeah.
How do you know? I got you. How do you know?
He got his.
Who wants 10 points by answering this?
That's all you need. You reached your quota, bro.
Yeah, good. I think we're pulling away.
Which individual conquered the Inca? Pizarro.
Oh, yeah.
Was it the Aztecs? No, that's
Who is Mexico?
Who started the English Reformation?
Martin Luther.
No.
Oh!
Henry VIII.
They're coming back. 10 points. I don't want to tie.
Our brains.
It's about the study, nothing. You got 1 minute.
It's about this.
Last question.
Last question.
Last question.
Girls can tie it here.
Who's known for the idea of predestination?
Got a few seconds.
John Calvin?
Very good.
He's the kid, the betrayer.
No, I was saying, I'm gonna say Copernicus.
Does that even one
Bro, keep in mind, everybody's got 20
Wait, what's it
Gabe is 0.0 shots.
solid shit.
All right, y'all be studying. I'll see you tomorrow.
Mr. Corporal, do you want me to erase the scoreboard?
Sure.
Game is motivation.
Huh?
Send me the video.
No. Yes, I was in the video.